Shabbat Shalom, everybody. My name is Victor, and Trevor has trusted me to give the message teaching today, and as long as he trusts me, I'm going to keep doing it until I get good at it. So, until then, you guys will have to bear with me. Let's see, today we're doing Deuteronomy 32, and Deuteronomy 32 is a song, the Song of Moses. And it's a prophetic song to the Israelite people, basically telling them how they're going to mess up and how he's going to redeem them and how he's going to turn his face against them, and then he's going to come back to them and bring them salvation. I'm going to begin at the end of 31, starting in chapter 31:21, because that's where Yahweh tells Moses to write the song and how it will be an indictment against the people in the future. So we're gonna start at 31:21. So at the end of chapter 31, Moses commissions Joshua and spends the rest of 31 telling the Israelites of their rebellion in the wilderness and how they will be rebellious in the future. He calls the ark and the law to be a witness against them. He calls heaven and earth to be witnesses against them. And he calls this song to be a witness against them. So in 31:21, it begins, "Then it will be, when many evils and troubles have found them, that this song will answer them as a witness, for it shall not be forgotten from the mouths of their seed. For I know their intent which they are developing today, before I have brought them into the land which I swore." So Moses wrote this song the same day and taught it to the sons of Israel. 23. Then he commissioned Joshua the son of Nun and said, "Be strong and courageous, for you shall bring the sons of Israel into the land which I swore to them, and I will be with you." And it happened when Moses finished writing the words of this law in a book until they were complete, that Moses commanded the Levites to carry the ark of the covenant of Yahweh, saying, "Take this book of the law and place it beside the ark of the covenant of Yahweh your God, that it may be there as a witness against you. For I know your rebellion and your stiff neck. Behold, while I am still alive with you today, you have been rebellious against Yahweh. How much more then after my death? Assemble to me all the elders of your tribes and your officers, that I may speak these words in their hearing and call the heavens and the earth to witness against them. For I know that after my death you will act corruptly and turn away from the way which I have commanded you, and evil will befall you in the last days, for you will do that which is evil in the sight of Yahweh, provoking him to anger." Okay, I just want to point out that as I stumble along, I want to show you, I have 2-year-olds. So throughout my reading, I'm trying to read, this is literally reading between the lines. So, okay, so why does he spend so much time and effort making sure that there are permanent witnesses against the people of Israel? I think it's because he wants to warn them, hoping they'll choose life, Mount Gerizim. He also wants them to have no excuse when he holds them accountable for their rebellion. When we get into the song, we're going to see that the song is laid out in a prophetic progression from God's character and perfection and love for Israel to Israel's wickedness and rebellion, to his discipline at times at the hands of other nations, then to revenge for his people, and then ultimately hope and redemption and salvation. And we see this played out throughout the scriptures, and you're going to see I'm going to be in here a lot. I say that because, I've done this a couple of times, and I may have said this before, but, when Trevor comes up here, it looks so easy and effortless, and then you're at home, you're preparing for weeks, and you go, okay, I got it. But then when you get up here, I just don't feel like he feels. So at least I don't look like how easy it feels for him. So thank you. Okay. We see this played out throughout Scripture. If we start with Genesis, Yahweh provided Adam and Eve with perfection in every sense of the word. They rebelled, turned their back on him. He disciplined them, kicked them out of the garden, promised vengeance on Satan, and then salvation. Genesis 3:15 reads, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. He, meaning the Messiah. In the book of Judges, we see a pattern where the people turn from God to idols, leading to oppression by their enemies, followed by repentance and cries for help, and finally God raising up leaders called judges to deliver them. Hosea uses his unfaithful wife Gomer to symbolize Israel's unfaithfulness and warnings of judgment and punishment, but also offers a promise of hope and restoration. Isaiah, warning of God's judgment for Israel's sin leading to their exile, then hope and restoration. And this is a theme over and over. Ezekiel, he's already exiled to Babylon, and through visions he describes the idolatry and unfaithfulness that drove Yah from the temple and led to Israel's downfall. But his visions also promise a future restoration and redemption. Ezekiel 36:26, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. And finally, Jeremiah. In Jeremiah is a warning to unfaithful Judah, proclaiming judgment and exile because of their unfaithfulness. But it ultimately concludes with a promise of restoration and a new covenant. 31:31. The days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the people of Israel and with the people of Judah. It will not be like the covenant I made with their ancestors when I took them by the hand to lead them out of Egypt, because they broke my covenant, though I was a husband to them, declares the Lord. Now we're going to see the same pattern in the Song of Moses, which, as we have seen, is prophetic. We're going to see God's character. The song begins by praising God's attributes, highlighting his truth, justice, and perfection. God's care for Israel. It describes how God raised and protected Israel, comparing him to an eagle nurturing its young. We're going to see Israel's rebellion. The core of the song is a condemnation of Israel's ungratefulness and turning away from God to worship false gods. Then God's discipline. It outlines the severe consequences of Israel's actions, including curses, disasters, abandonment by God as a form of punishment to bring them back to him. And then vengeance and hope. It concludes with a divine promise to avenge his people and show compassion to those who remain faithful. And when I read these, I often think about, when we're in the Old Testament, how does this apply to us? How does this pattern apply to us when we are going through our daily lives and we're going to work and we're having relationships at home and relationships with people, and then we go wayward. We turn left. We take a left, and we're out of God's presence, and we're not doing what he's called us to do. And in here we're going to see where he turns his face against Israel. And that doesn't mean that he leaves them and abandons them. He removes his protection. So when we're having hard times and we're praying and we say, God, how come you don't hear us? Is it that he turned his face from us because we have abandoned him? So as we get into 32, beginning with 32:1. Then Moses spoke in the hearing of all the assembly of Israel words of the song until they were complete. Give ear, O heavens, and let me speak. And let the earth hear the words of my mouth. Let what I have learned drop as the rain, my speech distill as the dew, as the droplets on the fresh grass, and as the showers on the herb. Now, this passage suggests that God's doctrine, when received in faith, will soften hearts, promote spiritual growth, and yield the fruit of righteousness, making it life-giving and transformative for people. Just like when we come to Torah weekly and read his word daily, when it becomes our sustenance, it has the ability to transform us. Verse 3, for I proclaim the name of Yahweh. Ascribe greatness to our God, the rock. His work is perfect, for all his ways are just. A God of faithfulness and without injustice, righteous and upright is he. So who's the rock? Who is the rock? Not the actor. In 1 Corinthians 10:1-4, it reads, for I do not want you to be ignorant of the fact, brothers and sisters, that our ancestors were all under the cloud and that they all passed through the sea. They were all baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. They all ate the same spiritual food, and drank the same spiritual drink, for they drank from the spiritual rock that accompanied them, and that rock was Christ. God's unwavering faithfulness is contrasted by Israel's repeated unfaithfulness, a theme repeated throughout the scriptures. The song begins with a celebration of God's perfect character, a reminder of his unchanging nature. He is the rock, his works are perfect, and all of his ways are just. Verse 5, they have acted corruptly toward him. They are not his children because of their defect, but are a perverse and crooked generation. This reminds me of Exodus 32, when God tells Moses, go down because your people, whom you brought up out of Egypt, have become corrupt. It looks like he disowns them, but he doesn't. Verse 6, do you thus repay Yahweh, O people who are wickedly foolish and without wisdom? Is not he your father who has brought you? He has made you and established you. Remember the ancient days. Consider the years from generation to generation. Ask your father, and he will declare to you, your elders, and they will speak to you. So ask the elders. He's telling them to ask the elders to remember, and this is in a future date. He's telling them to ask the elders to remember his faithfulness in years past. Psalms 44:1 reads, O God, we have heard with our ears. Our fathers have recounted to us the work that you did in their days, in the days of old. And Isaiah 46:9, remember the former things long past, for I am God and there is no other. I am God and there is no one like me. I'm going to be doing a lot of cross-references because this is a prophetic song. And as it plays out, we're going to see that in future scriptures how these prophecies have come to be fulfilled. Verse 8, when the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of man, he set the boundaries of the peoples according to the number of the sons of Israel. And as we get through verse 9 through 14, we're going to see how Yahweh claims Jacob, cares for him, and protects him. For Yahweh's portion is his people. Jacob is the allotment of his inheritance. He found him in a desert land and in the howling waste of a wilderness. He encircled him. He cared for him. He guarded him. And as the pupil of his eye, like an eagle that stirs up its nest, that hovers over its young, he spreads his wing and caught them. He carried them on his pinions. Yahweh alone guided him, and there was no foreign god with him. He made him ride on the high places of the earth, and he ate the produce of the field. And he made him suck honey from the rock, and oil from the flinty rock, curds of cows and milk of the flock, with fat of lambs and rams, the breed of Bashan, and goats, with the finest of the wheat, and of the blood of grapes you drank wine. Now Genesis 12:1 through 3 says, the Lord had said to Abram, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you I will curse, and all the peoples of the earth will be blessed through you. Jeremiah 10:16 says, the portion of Jacob is not like these, for the maker of all is he, and Israel is the tribe of his inheritance. Yahweh of hosts is his name. Verse 15, Jacob turns his back on Yahweh. Verse 15, but Yeshurun, which means upright and beloved, grew fat and kicked. You grew fat, thick, and sleek. Then he abandoned God who made him and treated the rock of his salvation with wicked foolishness. They made him jealous with strange gods, with abominations. They provoked him to anger. They sacrificed to demons who were not God, to gods whom they have not known, new gods who came lately, whom your fathers did not dread. You neglected the rock who begot you, and forgot the God who brought you forth. In Jeremiah 2:25 it says, do not chase after other gods until your shoes wear out and your throats become dry. But you say, it is useless for you to try and to stop me, because I love those foreign gods and want to pursue them. John 6:60 through 66 reads, on hearing it, many of his disciples said, this is a hard teaching. Who can accept it?" Aware that his disciples were grumbling about this, Jesus said to them, "Does this offend you? Then what if you see the Son of Man ascend to where he was before? The Spirit gives life, the flesh counts for nothing. The words I have spoken to you, they are full of the Spirit and life. Yet there are some of you who do not believe." For Jesus had known from the beginning which of them did not believe and who would betray him. He went on to say, "This is why I told you that no one can come to me unless the Father has enabled them." From this time, many of his disciples turned back and no longer followed him. Verse 19. And Yahweh saw this and spurned them. And in this section, we're going to see how Yahweh turns his face from them, turns his back on them, but he doesn't turn his back. Like I said before, he removes his covering, his protection. 19. And Yahweh saw this and spurned them because of the provocation of his sons and daughters. Then he said, "I will hide my face from them. I will see that their end shall be, for they are a perverse generation, sons in whom is no faithfulness." And like I said, this doesn't mean he abandons Israel. It means he removes his protection and lets the consequences of their disobedience overtake them. 21. They have made me jealous with what is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their idols. So I will make them jealous with those who are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a wickedly foolish nation. For a fire is kindled in my anger, and it burns to the lowest part of Sheol, and it consumes the earth with its produce, and it sets on fire the foundations of the mountains. In Hebrews 13, God says, "I will not abandon you or forsake you." And we can hold on to that when we read passages like this. "I will never leave you nor forsake you." When we read passages like this, as we've seen and as we will see as we continue to read the scriptures, he turns his back on them or he forsakes them, he comes back. And like when we read Jeremiah, in the book of Jeremiah, he's pleading with them to come back. So we have his promise that he will never leave us or forsake us. God's jealousy is not a human emotion, but a just desire to protect his covenant with Israel, which is described as a marital bond. It signifies God's righteous jealousy and anger at Israel's turning to false gods and worthless idols instead of him. God, who is faithful to his covenant, is described as being provoked by their unfaithfulness, comparing it to a spouse giving affection to others. From 23 to 26, we're going to see how God disciplines Israel. He says, "I will heap calamities on them. I will exhaust my arrows on them. They will be wasted by famine and consumed by plague and bitter destruction. And the teeth of beasts I will send upon them with the venom of crawling things of the dust. Outside the sword will bereave, and inside terror, both choice man and virgin, the nursing baby with the man of gray hair. I would have said, I will cut them to pieces. I will cause the memory of them to cease from men." In Leviticus 26:25 reads, "And I will bring the sword on you to avenge the breaking of the covenant when you withdraw into your cities. I will send a plague among you, and you will be given into enemy hands." We can see this when the Assyrians conquered the northern kingdom and Judah was conquered by the Babylonians, then the Romans. Verse 27, concern for his name. "Had I not feared the provocation by the enemy, lest their adversaries misjudge, lest they say, our hand is triumphant, and Yahweh has not done all this?" Here, God, through Moses, expresses that he would have completely destroyed Israel for its unfaithfulness, but refrained from doing so because he feared the hostile nations would misunderstand his actions and mistakenly believe their own strength had achieved Israel's destruction, rather than acknowledging God's power and judgment. It's reminiscent of when Moses pleaded with God to spare the Hebrews because the nations would say he couldn't deliver his people. In Exodus 32:12, it reads, "Why should the Egyptians say it was with evil intent that he brought them out to kill them in the mountains and to wipe them off the face of the earth?" In Numbers 14:15, it reads, If you put all these people to death, this is Moses talking to Yahweh. If you put all these people to death, leaving none alive, the nations who have heard this report about you will say, the Lord was not able to bring these people into the land he had promised them on oath, so he slaughtered them in the wilderness. That's what the people will say. Verse 28 through 30, we see Israel's lack of wisdom. For they are a nation where counsel perishes, and there is no discernment in them. Would what they were wise, that they had insight into this, that they would understand their future. How could one pursue 1,000 and two put 10,000 to flight, unless their rock had sold them, and Yahweh had handed them over? It's not a rhetorical question. Yahweh is emphasizing that Israel's defeats were not because their enemies were stronger, but because God had withdrawn his protection, sold, and given them up due to their disobedience and unfaithfulness to the covenant. Judges 2:14 reads, And the anger of Yahweh burned against Israel, and he gave them into the hands of plunderers who plundered them, and he sold them into the hands of their enemies around them, so that they could no longer stand before their enemies. Now we get into the judgment for the wicked. We're going to see a change in direction. Judgment for the wickedness of the nations, and then vindication of his peoples, and then proclaims his sovereignty. So verse 34, It is not laid up in store with me, sealed up in my treasuries. Vengeance is mine and retribution. In due time their foot will stumble, for the day of their disaster is near, and the impending things are hastening upon them. In Romans 2:5, it reads, But because of your stubbornness and your unrepentant heart, you are storing up wrath against yourself for the day of God's wrath, when his righteous judgment will be revealed. And in Hosea 13:12, the iniquity of Ephraim is bound up, his sin is stored up. Verse 36, vindication for his people. For Yahweh will render justice to his people, and will have compassion on his slaves. When he sees that their strength is gone, and there is none remaining, bond or free, he will say, Where are their gods, the rock in which they have sought refuge? Who ate the fat of their sacrifices and drank the wine of their drink offering? Let them rise up and help you. Let them be your hiding place. See, now that I am he, and there is no God beside me. It is I who put to death and give life. I have wounded, and it is I who heal, and there is no one who can deliver from my hand. Indeed, I lift up my hand to heaven, and I say, I live forever. If I sharpen my flashing sword, and my hand takes hold on judgment, I will render vengeance on my adversaries. I will repay those who hate me. I will make arrows drunk with blood, and my sword will devour flesh. With the blood of the slain and the captives from the long-haired leaders of the enemy, O nations, cause his people to shout for joy, for he will avenge the blood of his slaves, and he will render vengeance on his adversaries, and he will atone for his land and his hope. Verses 39 through 43 is a declaration of God's sovereignty, justice, and eventual triumph. It serves as the concluding section of the Song of Moses, emphasizing that while God used foreign nations to discipline Israel, he will ultimately take vengeance on Israel's enemies and restore his own people. 1 Samuel 2:6 says, Yahweh puts to death and makes alive. He brings down to Sheol and raises up. 2 Samuel 22:32, For who is God but Yahweh, and who is a rock but our God? John 5:21, For just as the Father raises the dead and gives them life, even so the Son also gives life to whom he wishes. Psalm 68:21, Surely God will crush the head of his enemies, the hairy skull of him who goes on in his guilty deeds. Verses 48. And Yahweh spoke to Moses the very same day, saying, Go up to this mountain of the Abarim, Mount Nebo, who is in the land of Moab, opposite Jericho, and look at the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the sons of Israel for a possession. Then die on the mountain where you ascend, and be gathered to your people, as Aaron your brother died on Mount Hor and was gathered to his people, because you both acted unfaithfully with me in the midst of sons of Israel at the waters of Meribah, Kadesh, in the wilderness of Zin, because you both did not treat me as holy in the midst of the sons of Israel. Numbers 20:12 reads, because you did not believe in me to uphold me as holy in the eyes of the people of Israel. Therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land that I have given them. And finally, verse 32. For you shall see the land at a distance, but you shall not go there into the land which I am giving the sons of Israel. And I often think about how I grieve for Moses. You know, he spent 40 years carrying these people throughout the desert, doing what God asked him to do, and he made a mistake like we all do. But what he thought was his ultimate reward, he didn't get to see. But his reward was ultimately that he got to go be with the Lord. And that concludes 32. Anybody have any questions, comments? John?
It's quite a difference between Moses at the beginning, who was afraid to speak, and I assume he read this and spoke in front of people, that it was really eloquent in the change that God brought over time in him.
Yeah. And he didn't have his brother to speak for him, so he had to step up. And I imagine that as he continued to have problems with the people, you know, the frustration and the anger, you know, he built up an ability to, you know, speak to him. Anyone else? Trevor?
I have a question. It does say on my heading, the Song of Moses, right before verse 30. But that is on a heading. It's structured in poetry, but it doesn't appear that... Was this a song? Do you know? Where would we get that indication in the text that it's a song, or is it a psalm?
In 31, it says, where I read 31:21, then it will be when many evil troubles have found them that this song will answer them as a witness.
Gotcha. You know what
And I spent some time trying to figure out a rhythm and I'm not musical at all, so you know, how to do it as a song. I wouldn't have sung anyway because you guys all would have left.
No.
But
I thought the same thing.
You know, I'm trying to figure out how is this a song. It reads more. It doesn't even read like a poem to me. It reads like prose. You know, it's a prophetic prose that lays out, you know, like I said, a pattern, and it didn't read like a song to me at all.
Well, in Hebrew it might have.
Okay.
So potentially, but it probably more laid out like a song. But sometimes in my little head, I probably have watched movies I shouldn't have watched, and in retrospect, this is probably one of them. So if I'm offending someone, I'm so sorry. It was a long time ago. It was cute. It was Elf. Yeah, with what is that guy's name? Yeah, Will Ferrell. That's probably back before I knew better. I'm just telling you. And I think he's in the bathroom. He shouldn't have been. He's like singing to that girl. I love you. How are you?
Oh, I thought you were talking about Alf, the TV show from...
No. I'm
Okay.
talking about Elf with...
Elf.
Now, again,
Okay,
I'm just letting you know, for all you Torah-offended people, that this is back before I knew any better. Now, that said, the content of this song is just not very romantic. And I can just kind of... I mean, can you imagine... Yahweh or Moses singing this, and he's saying things like and Yahweh, he spurned you because of the provocation of his sons and daughters. You're perverse, you perverse generation. I mean, I think you could put this in that new AI thing and really come out with some good folk music, is what I'm guessing. This was not meant to be comedic relief. I'm just trying to figure out how in the world is this psalm of you are basically one whore of a woman and you've done this to me. I mean, he's angry. And then you put this to song, and I'm just thinking this is just a piece of work here. So anyway, I'll leave it alone there. I got other thoughts, but that's one I just kind of Trevor thinks sometimes.
But it,
Yeah,
maybe what?
Quirky? You know, I'm just thinking, you know how old people get to the end of their lives and they just don't care anymore? I'm just kind of thinking that we're at the end of the wilderness journey, and Yahweh's just full on like, I don't care. I'm telling you exactly like it is. And just to put the cherry on top, we're going to put it to song.
Jacob.
Yeah, so totally not trying to be funny, Trevor. That was great. Lamentations isn't the sexiest book either, but it's one giant lament put to song over Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
And so something that we forget also is like Psalm 119. We read it in English, but Psalm 119 goes through every single letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and it's in an acrostic so that in one section, for example, you have Aleph and then Bet and then Gimel. Every single line corresponds to the corresponding letter.
Mm-hmm.
So all of the verses in Aleph, they all start with Aleph. And then the following begins with Bet. So we think in terms of iambic pentameter for English poetry. In Hebrew, it doesn't quite work like that. You can have acrostic, or you can have different ways that it goes about it. But this would be more akin to like a dirge or a lamentation.
Okay.
So it's actually a song of lament over what's going to happen, much like Lamentations, in that Jeremiah is lamenting over, alongside the Lord, what is about to happen to Jerusalem because of her infidelity. And so it's kind of sad because, to Trevor's point, it's like, what's going on here? Well, it's I'll put it in Trevor language almost. It's like a guy just married his wife, and he knows the next day she's going to go cheat on him.
And marries her anyway.
I mean, and marries her anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, it is like the saddest thing that like is about to happen. Like he's prepared her, he's taken care of her in the wilderness, she's already cheated on him twice, and he's like, I'm going to take you into because I promised you, and I still know you're going to play the whore.
Yeah.
And then I'm still going to have to come after you, and it's just really sad. Yeah, it's heartbreaking, right? So for that was a comment on that. But there's something in here that is always struck me as interesting, is that the terminology crooked and perverse generation. And if you take a look at where that language shows up again, it shows up in Matthew, it shows up in Luke, and it shows up in Acts, and it shows up in Philippians. And the New Testament authors actually ascribe that to the generation that bore witness to Yeshua. And he says a crooked and perverse generation asks for a sign and a wonder. Mm-hmm. In Acts they say, save yourself from this crooked and perverse generation. And so what I've always found interesting is that Deuteronomy 32 seems to find its fulfillment in the generation that rejects Yeshua. And what's most interesting is that in Deuteronomy 32, it says, I will hide my face. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what Yeshua does when they reject him. And you just made the connection that he was the rock. 1 Corinthians, Paul writes that this rock that sustained them was Christ. So he's with them in the wilderness. Mm-hmm. So what's even sadder is the fact that who is actually teaching this song to Moses is actually the Son. And then you push that forward to the New Testament, who's the one hiding his face?
Yeshua.
It's the Son. And it's heartbreaking. Because they don't just do this once. They do it to him over and over and over, just like Gomer does to Hosea.
Yeah, it's the repeating pattern. And I think that's why in the beginning, when he writes the song for the people, he says it's a witness against you. Here you have, I'm telling you what you're going to do, and I'm telling you what the end result is going to be, and I'm telling you what you're going to do, and I'm telling you what I'm going to do. But he starts out by laying out his perfection, everything that he's done for them, how he's carried them and protected them. But you're going to do this anyway. And as that applies to us, when, we first come into Messiah and we, first bend the knee and we're on our face in prayer and we say, okay, here's what you have to offer us: life, eternity, salvation. And then we do what they did. Years ago I used to think, if I lived back in those days, I'd be straight. But then you think, these people walked with God and they weren't straight. And they walked with Yeshua and they weren't straight. You have the creator of the universe in your face, and the wickedness of our hearts allowed them to say, I don't see that. And then we see this pattern repeat over and over because people live and die and live and die. And this generation goes, and then the next generation repeats it. And then that generation dies, and the next generation repeats it. And this generation is going to die. And all of those kids in there, hopefully, prayerfully, they won't repeat it. But it's the fact that we're here, every Shabbat. It's that we observe the Moedim. And our kids come with us, and they see it, and they see as we try to walk a straight and narrow path, that they won't repeat the pattern. Because when we get to the book of Revelation, and the stuff hits the fan, it's going to be those that are steadfast that are going to be able to see the glory of Messiah. Where's Matt?
This is Tammy. I had a hard time thinking that this was a song too, but now that you said that, I'm thinking maybe it was a country western tune. But how many times have we had some song stuck in our head? Music speaks to us, so no matter the cadence or whatever, it's something that's supposed to stick with us. Mm-hmm. That's the song that, that little jingle or whatever, this is the song that's supposed to stick with us. He gave it to us in the song because the song is in our hearts, and that's why I think it's a song, to help remind us, so that when we are thinking about other things, that little song comes into our head, however the jingle goes.
Yeah. John? And then Trevor.
Yeah, I'm John. My wife isn't here today, but she did some research at home, and there's a couple, 3 videos of the songs of Moses put to music.
Okay.
There is no original thought.
I'm going to go back to the rock being Messiah, being there present with the Israelites in the desert. And the reason I bring it up is I have had a difficult time articulating, and maybe you or maybe I'll ask Jacob, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but we had this conversation this morning. It was an interesting one for me. One of the things that I often will cite with regard to the instruction of God or the Torah of God is when Yeshua says, if you love me, you're going to do something. You're going to obey my commandments. And one of the things that I get kicked back often for is that they say, well, Traver. Essentially, all you're doing is you are conflating Yeshua with Yahweh. So Yahweh's commandments are different than Yeshua's commandments. If I were to follow Yeshua, I do what Yeshua did, and I go back maybe to the Sermon on the Mount, but I don't need to go back to the instruction. And I'm like, wait, time out. Are you a monotheist or not? Now, that's me being sarcastic. But I understand what they're saying. I get that the Son is different from the Father in the sense that he's subordinate to the Father. There's a mystery that I don't quite understand, but I don't know. I just kind of think that whatever's coming from Sinai is coming from the Son. And I think I'm standing on solid ground there. That said, I want to better articulate that for people. And I could see evidences like this crooked generation type thing. Another evidence, I'm going to read to you a proof text out of 1 John chapter 5. I would like to thank the Bible Project for tipping me off to this, because they were the ones that wanted to conflate here in this text. And I'm like, wait, time out. You can't do it here and not also do it in John 14:15. But they conflate, and I think they're right to conflate. 1 John chapter 5, verse 20. And we know that the Son of God has come and has given us understanding so that we may know him who is true. And we are in him who is true, in his Son, Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach. This is the true God and eternal life. In other words, John is saying right there, this Jesus, this Yeshua, is the true God and eternal life. If we are in him, we are in Yahweh. And I would think that the same type of logic would go to John 14:15. Yeshua says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. Now, why is this relevant here? It's not just relevant because, yeah, of course, we're a Christian congregation. I mean, I use that word let's just make it wholesome for a second. A Christian congregation, we believe that we are saved by grace through faith, but we don't want to continue to whore ourselves, give ourselves to idols. Instead, we want to give ourselves to the commandments of God, because we don't want to be a stiff-necked generation, a wicked and corrupt generation. We want to give ourselves over to the Lord and his commandments. Now, when we go back to this song, is there anything, is it just the rock, Jacob, do you think? Is there anything else in this song that would further connect for people that the Son and the Father are one in this sense, that they are betraying here not just the Father, but they're betraying the Son as well? What do you think? Anyone have commentary on that? Victoria has commentary.
Well, before we get there, I just had a couple of things that came up for me while you were sharing. One is 1 John. He says, "Woman, I am not giving you a new commandment, but the one that you have heard from the beginning." He clarifies the commandments have not changed. And Yeshua says, "I have not come to bring a new doctrine. I have come with the doctrine of my Father who has sent me. And I only speak the words that I hear my Father speak." So he's reiterating to us in many places that he's not coming with anything new, that he came to fill up the Torah. He is the living Torah. And these commandments have not changed. And that's why, the book of Revelation to me is so powerful, because they're his words, Yeshua's words. It's his gospel. And he said, "Blessed are those who do his commandments, for they shall have the right to the tree of life and to enter the gates to the city of Elohim." And he says in many places throughout Revelation that we must keep the commandments. So I think it's very clear.
in some ways, my question was a bit of a setup. Because when we talk about it, we work through it together, we learn it better. Now that said, I was being genuine in trying to connect the idea that Yeshua being the rock being evident in this particular passage in Moses' song. That one I'm still working through myself. On the 1 John 1, in our men's Bible study, we did go through this. And interestingly, even some of the commentaries, and I don't even, like you and I have figured out those commentaries are not always right. But they want to connect this back to the beginning thing, rooting it into the genesis of Yeshua's ministry, not the Torah, which isn't anything that I would agree with in that, and I want to just say that it's true. In the book of John, a new commandment I give you, love one another as I have loved you. It wasn't new. Even John Piper says this, because I researched it out. I wanted to know, what are the evangelicals saying about this? It isn't new in the sense that there's anything new. It's new in that Yeshua actually did it. And he's telling them, I gave you the command to tell you what the action should be, but if you want to know what it looks like with a circumcised heart, look at me. So in that sense, it's new because it hadn't been done before. Can you see how there was no Yeshua before Yeshua in the sense of the incarnation? In the sense of the incarnation, there was no one that came to live that last Adam life, that second Adam, where the first Adam completely messed it up. And we were all in that Adam. But the last Adam, the second man that we find ourselves in, if we claim and we believe that he is the Messiah who died for us, the Passover lamb, he puts his spirit in us, that Adam, we can find ourselves in that Adam, and that Adam did it perfectly. And inasmuch as we allow the Spirit to dwell in our lives, then we're walking in that second or last Adam, which should change how do you quench the Spirit? You quench the Spirit by not walking in the commandments that Yeshua embodied. That's quenching the Spirit. It's not going to some aglow meeting and somehow the tongues are not coming through you. I'm not anti-tongues. I'm just telling you that sometimes we have, in charismatic circles, missed what it means to quench the Spirit. But I digress a little bit in that I want to find it also in Deuteronomy where this idea of the rock, and if you missed the Torah portion study we had, that was really dynamic and that was good. And just to hear, Jacob, how you talked about the rock there, that was good. Thank you.
So another thing you could look at besides the rock is the word vengeance in this particular passage. So I had a Bible professor who actually was one of the founders of the Bible Project, a very intelligent guy. And he always instructed us to look for these hyperlinks, the literary ninjas, he would call it. He's kind of a hipster. And one of the things in Deuteronomy that sticks out to try and continue to link who is being offended here and having to deal with the infidelity. When it speaks about vengeance, that vengeance it's mine and I will repay. We can look at places in the Tanakh that give us allusions to that. So what I would say is, for another corroboration, or another link rather, is Isaiah 63 and Isaiah 61. So we'll start in Isaiah 61. Specifically, whenever Yeshua says something and he applies it to himself, that's a dead giveaway. So Isaiah 61 says, the Spirit of the Lord God is on me. So we should all be familiar with this with regards to, this is what he says in Luke chapter 4. Okay, so he's speaking before an assembly on Shabbat, and the scroll is handed to him, and he opens it up and he says, the Spirit of the Lord God is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and freedom to the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. And then he closes the scroll. He closes it right in the middle of the passage. And it's really bizarre because in our English, we just look at that and we're like, okay, well, I guess that was the end of the verse. But where he closes it is, the very next line is, and the day of our God's vengeance. Like, it's just, like, why did he close it? Because the vengeance remains.
For a later time.
For a later time. And so if you flip to Isaiah 63, you have this interim time period that's passed. And then Psalm 63, verse 1, it says, who is this coming from Edom, in crimson-stained garments from Bosra? This one who is splendid in his apparel, rising up proudly in his great might. It is I proclaiming vindication, powerful to save. And then there's a response, why is your clothing red and your garments like one who treads the winepress? We should be hyperlinking to Revelation, where we see that the Lord appears and his garments are stained in blood. So now we go to Revelation, fast forward, and then we come back because we have the benefit of the whole Word of God. I trampled the winepress alone, and no one from the nations was with me. I trampled them in my anger and ground them underfoot in my fury. Their blood spattered my garments, and all my clothes were stained. For I planned the day of vengeance, and the year of my redemption came. I looked, there was no one to help, and I was amazed that no one assisted. So my own arm accomplished victory for me, and my wrath assisted me. I crushed the nations in my anger. I made them drunk with my wrath, and poured out their blood on the ground. So when you connect the vengeance language in Deuteronomy chapter 31, he deals with the nations too. Because Deuteronomy 31, if you look at the close of it, before Moshe passes the torch, I'm sorry, 32, thank you. When he passes the torch, he says, what's going to happen? I will take vengeance on my adversaries. Okay, well, that's the nations. Could be Israel. Could be his enemies. But he takes hold of judgment. When I take vengeance on my adversaries and repay those who hate me, I will make my arrows drunk. There's that same language. The drunkenness, because it's such a massive slaughter. While my sword devours flesh, the sword comes out of his mouth in Revelation and strikes down his enemies. The blood of the slain and the captives, it comes up to a horse's bridle in Revelation. The heads of the enemy leaders. And then he says, rejoice, you nations, over his people. For he will avenge the blood of his servants. He will take vengeance on his adversaries, and he will purify his land and his people. And the connection I would see there to Yom Kippurim is what is being referenced here is actually a connection to the latter prophets when he says he'll purify his land and his people. Has that happened yet? No. For he promises that he will cleanse the land in a single day. And so we got a foretaste of that yesterday with Yom Kippurim, but the cleansing yet remains to be done. And we know that as our high priest, the high priest goes it alone in Yom Kippurim. He has no one to help him. He has to do the whole thing by himself. And so Yom Kippurim and contingent, and if you were to take a look at Deuteronomy in this passage, what it does is it exalts Messiah even higher. He has to do the whole thing by himself with the help of his Father. There's no one else to help him. And I look at that and I just can't help but when the rubber meets the road for us on this day as we go into Sukkot, do we give him enough glory? He works with us as we work against him. He works against the powers and principalities in the heavenly places. He has an adulterous wife. He does it all by himself. Do we give him enough glory for the patience that he gives us? Do we give him enough glory for what he's accomplished? I don't think we do. And we should have a much more, I think, grateful heart, realizing that as the bride of Messiah, what our husband has had to put up with, because we deserve death. Because we don't escape being grouped in with Israel here. I don't know about you guys. I'm not batting 1,000 on sin or righteousness. I'm batting 1,000 on sin. We need to humble our hearts even more so that as we approach Sukkot, we can really elevate and glorify our bridegroom who's coming back for us. Because he does this all in spite of us. And it's kind of the tone you get with Deuteronomy 31. It's just like, there's a part of this that's like, I'm not going to let you get away with this. I'm going to bring you into the bonds of the covenant. You're going to be mine. I'm going to have my wife. I'm going to have my land. I'm going to have my people. And I'm going to present them all to the Father.
Anyone else? Talking about the grateful part of all this. This song is about me. It's about all the ways that I have failed. I was stiff-necked. I was the one that ran after idols. It doesn't mean that I don't try. I do. I want to be the remnant. There are people that are seeking to really follow and obey. And you might be in that category too, but it's also good and healthy to also recognize where we've come from. Because if you are seeking to follow and obey today, maybe that wasn't you 5 years ago. So I don't want to just say that people don't improve, but that's part of the goal of sanctification, of what Yahweh is doing inside of the believer, is forming his son inside of you. So there is improvement. And to the degree that there's improvement, there's life. There's definitely that. I'm going to re-share something that I shared this morning in group, so sorry you're having to rehear it. But there's another layer, so there's more. But wait, there's more. So the thing that I will do in my head is I will try to analogize something for myself, so that way it makes a little bit more feely sense. And my analogy this morning was I used to watch The Wonder Years when I was a kid, and it was Fred Savage who fell in love with Winnie Cooper. If you don't know what that is, I sound old, sorry, nothing I can do about it. But there was an episode where Fred Savage is in a parking lot, and he sees Winnie down the way, and she's by her car, and he fantasizes in his mind that there's like this cart or car coming right at her, and he takes a big dive, and he saves her from the cart, and she dotes over him in some way. It's all made up in his mind. I guess that's maybe it. Is Yahweh in this chapter he's like, do you not know what I've done for you? Do you not understand what I've given or what I will give? I mean, it's all set out in the picture already of Passover. They've already sacrificed a lamb in order to get out of Egypt. In other words, he's already painted for them what's going to happen. It's like they should know, he knows, and look what I'm going to do for you. And still, this is what's the nature of a relationship? You pay no mind to the things that I have given you. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but at Mount Sinai, he's essentially laying out a betrothal contract. He's telling them, if you want to be married to me, here's how to prepare yourself as a bride. And they disregard it. And then in this song, it's like, I see him saying, I'm going to use other nations to discipline you. But what I'm noticing here is that when he disciplines them as a father to a child. He doesn't discipline her necessarily as an adulterous woman. what he does is he takes on that. In other words, when you see all the indictments against them, you can even hear it in the Gospels where they call him, you are a glutton and a drunkard. And that's what happens with the rebellious son. And then it goes into, cursed is any man who's hung on a tree. So we can see what Yeshua does is all the curses in some sense that he's heaping upon them here. He's like, do you not even know, even in this song, I will lay down my life and take all these things. He pays the ultimate price as the atoning sacrifice for you. And so what I think about that is, it's not that his discipline is absent. It's certainly there. Hebrews 12 tells us, 12 verse 6, 7, hey, don't despise the discipline. A father disciplines his children. And I've had to learn this too with my own sons. Don't be scared when your father disciplines you. Be scared when he stops disciplining you, because that means he doesn't care anymore. Sees you as kind of hopeless. In some sense, when I read in Romans 1, when they started giving themselves over to all the lusts of their flesh, their fornication, Yahweh gives them over to their debased mind. That's just another way of saying, okay, I'll stop disciplining you because you do not want to clearly be my children. And I just think all wrapped up in all that with this song is, I think, first of all, I think I'm really sorry. Second of all, I thank you that you didn't make me pay the full what I deserved. You did that in your Son who took my place. But I can also say thank you for not, and it hurts to even say it, but for not neglecting to discipline me. Because I had many, many years. You don't know this about me, but I started a church way back in the day, and I had a 15, 20-year timeout. And the timeout was having to just let go of a ton of things, and everything from doctrine, but honestly, a lot of self. What do you can ask yourself, if I had to do this with myself, what do you want out of life? And there's a degree to which everyone still wants what they want, and I had to let that go. And to be able to humble yourself. This is what I think what Jacob is getting at. It's not just the repentance. It is whatever transformation needs to happen in our lives. That, thank you so much. It must have been between Jacob and Victoria this morning. They had a powwow and went at it. It was good. But I just thought to myself, when the striking the rock, so Moses, he wasn't able to go into the promised land because he struck the rock. And the point is in part, Yahweh gave him a command and he added to it. And Yeshua says, don't add or take away from the commandments. And part of what we have to do is we have to find ourselves completely in him, in the commandments, not veering to the right or to the left. And only when we do that are we now centered in him. And that's part of the disciplining. It's not just the repentance, because repentance should, by necessity, mean we are saying we're not going to be that, and we're going to turn from that way and be something else. So I hope for Sukkot, that's where I end up, is having a kind of relationship that's just unfettered, right? And that's, if we're at Sukkot, that just means Feast of Tabernacles, but we're tabernacling with him where he makes his dwelling with us. And it's now, it's the time of the kingdom where the atonement has happened. We're in the millennial kingdom, and all that guck in our lives is now gone. But the thing is, we come to this rehearsal that we're going to next week, and here's where I'll see it pop up. I've been a shepherd a long time, and I know you get 70, 75 people together for any amount of time, and there's I'm like, come on. When are we just going to like chill out, walk in his ways, and look at what he does for us? So, I mean, I know he seems to be impatient here, but honestly, he's pretty patient. And even so, when they transgress, what has Yahweh done for us? He pays the price. Why can't we do that for our brothers and sisters? It's Sukkot coming up. Let's do that for our brothers and sisters. Long-suffering. Even the fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. We got to model these things. But I want to be the kind of man that we go into Sukkot on this rehearsal, that I have been truly transformed. You know I'm talking to me, right? I want you to know I'm talking to me. But if it helps you and you can run up that mountain with me and do the same, that would be awesome. And just continue to let Yahweh discipline us to be conformed into his image. Yeah, I monologued.
Okay. When Yahweh disciplines his people, he turns his face from them, he lets them go through trials and tribulations so they cry out to him. Just like when we discipline our children, it's not just to provide a punishment, it's to change behavior. And so either we will be disciplined or we will have self-discipline. We'll look at our errant ways and we'll self-correct, which we usually don't do. A lot of times, I know I don't do. I have to be hit upside the head, growing up or, just in my daily life. I keep running into a wall until some point I go, oh, that hurts. Let me stop running into that wall. And so when Yah disciplines his people and we are his people, I think it would be incumbent upon all of us to say, why does this hurt? Why does this keep happening? It's not him. He's doing what he's supposed to do in order to get us to stop taking a left and get back on a straight and narrow path until we get on that path. So the discipline will come, and it will continue to come if we belong to him. For those, we all know people who are in the world and they're prospering and they're making money and they're doing all kind of stuff and they do wrong things and nothing bad happens to them. Like you were saying, he's holding his discipline back from them. He's not correcting their behavior because he knows where they're going to end up. They don't. So, anyone else with a thought? Jacob first. Okay.
I just wanted to say that he's disciplining his people because he wants us all with him in his eternal kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And he would rather that we go through a trial in this temporary realm and learn from it and seek his face and walk uprightly so that we can live with him forever, than for us to go about our business and not have correction. That's how he shows his love. That is so much greater than any earthly love that we could ever comprehend. It's an eternal, deep, deep love that he made his creation to dwell with him in his eternal house. And he seeks all of us to love him and to look upon his face and to be under his protection. And that's why he gave us these guidelines. It wasn't for our harm, it was for our good, because he loves us.
Yeah.
So this one's from Jamie, because she's awesome and sees things. What was the verse, honey, that you were pointing out? So it's Deuteronomy 32, verse 21. They have provoked my jealousy with what is not a god. They have enraged me with their worthless idols. So I will provoke their jealousy with what is not a people. I will enrage them with a foolish nation. Should ring a bell, even though I read right over it. And the bell ringing should come from Romans chapter 10. So if you go to Romans chapter 10, Verse 19, but I ask, this is Paul speaking, did Israel not understand? For Moshe or Moses said, I will make you jealous of those who are not a nation. I will make you angry by a nation that lacks understanding. The gospel's in Deuteronomy 32. Like the plan for the Gentiles is there the whole time. Gentiles are not a plan B. It's like, no, they're a part of the whole plan because that was the promise I made to Abraham, right? Through you, when he's still Abram, through you, all nations of the earth shall be blessed. And this is one of those things that, for those of us who are not biologically from Abraham, I want us to really recognize we're not a plan B. We really aren't. For as many as believe, he gave the right to be called children of God. So you have the Gentile plan of salvation in 32, and that's exactly what Paul's trying to get at, is that through Israel's disobedience, that's how powerful our God is, that he can take disobedience and make it into a blessing. I mean, it's incredible what our God is capable of. And it's all the way back in Deuteronomy 32. Through the song of lament, he brings something beautiful out of it. Salvation for the nations. And it's going to make Israel jealous, which I kind of see it happening now a little bit, because I kind of see people in Israel who are like, well, why are all these crazy Gentiles like doing quote unquote Jewish stuff? We don't like that. Like, that's our stuff. And I'm kind of seeing it now a little bit. I'm like, oh yeah, they are kind of a little bit jealous. It's actually kind of starting to happen. It's kind of cool, right? Because they're like, well, that's not your stuff. It's like, oh no, it's our stuff. You just don't know it. And we didn't know it for 2,000 years. But it's coming back. And so guess what, fellow Jewish brother, you should probably go read Deuteronomy 32 and realize this was the plan the whole time. And it's okay, because Yahweh kind of played us both. And he gets his family in the process, both natural and unnatural. It's kind of cool.
Matt, in the back.
Hi, this is Eli. On what Jacob just said, I think that's what Yeshua's parable of the prodigal son was in reference to. It was the older brother who was going to be the light of the law, Judah, would be jealous of the younger brother, Ephraim, who left and squandered his inheritance and, came back. And it was a lesson for them to accept us. And that's what will ultimately be the reconciliation between the two houses in the last day.
This is Umberto. So to Jacob's point, there's a couple things regarding the causing the Jewish people, spreading them to jealousy. There's this YouTube account, I forget what they're called now, but they're always doing street evangelism in Israel and Jewish communities in the U.S. But never mind their name. I found it interesting that a lot of times the stumbling block, I would say, for them to accepting Yeshua is they'll make comments like Christians reject the law, reject the Torah. So that stumbling block is currently being addressed in the body of Messiah. And the other thing that you mentioned was that the Gentiles being brought in isn't a plan B, which that in itself I've been reflecting on in the last, just 15, 20 minutes as we've been talking about the importance of linking Yeshua and Yahweh together for the same reason. That he had always, I even mentioned it last week, that Yahweh mentioned it ahead of time. He knew that we were going to turn from him. He knew that his people would turn from him. So there's a couple passages here to just remind us that Yahweh is the creator and Yeshua is the creator. Same thing. In Isaiah 44, it says, for thus said Yahweh, creator, verse 18, for thus said Yahweh, creator of the heavens, he is Elohim, former of earth and its maker, he established it. He did not create it to be empty, he formed it to be inhabited. I am a Yahweh, and there is none else. Which then ties it to, let's see, I think I have it. Let's see if I can do it one-handed. Colossians verse 1, or chapter 1, I think it's 15, referring to the Son, in whom we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins, who is the likeness of the invisible Elohim, the firstborn of all creation, because in him were created all that are in the heavens and that are on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or rulerships or principalities or authorities, all have been created through him and for him. And then there's one more passage out of Zechariah 12, when it's Yahweh referring to himself. Let's see if I can find the passage. Let's see. In that day Yahweh shall shield the inhabitants of Jerusalem, etc., etc. And it shall be in that day that I seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. I shall pour out on the house of David and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem a spirit of favor and prayer. And so this is Yahweh, and they shall look on me whom they pierced. So Yahweh saying it's him who's pierced, but it's interesting grammatically because it says, and they shall look on me whom they pierced, and they shall mourn for him as one mourns for his only son, and they shall be in bitterness over him as a bitterness over the firstborn. So this entire time it's Yahweh who got pierced, which is Yeshua who was pierced. Yahweh is the creator, Yeshua is the creator. It's always been him who's been with Israel through the wilderness. He's the salvation is through him, and salvation is through Yeshua. It's always been the same thing. And the reason this is so important is because if we separate that, then we can have this separation of Yahweh failed in his promises to Israel, and Yeshua brings in plan B through the Gentiles. And I can see how there's all these weird doctrines that people make Yahweh out to be the evil one, and Yeshua is the good one, and things can get sideways real quick if you disconnect it and don't make Yahweh out to be as faithful as he really is.
Aloha, this is Michael.
Hey, Michael.
I want to take what Traver just said and go a little deeper, which is that the Sukkot celebration is 8 days. There's an 8th day. And the whole point of the Song of Moses, in my opinion, is, hey, we get forgiven. We don't deserve that mercy, but we get forgiven. But we need to go beyond the cross. That's what Jesus is saying. Go to the Father through me, because there is an 8th day. There's a lot more than just being forgiven. It's like a wonderful shoe shop, a store, and you're looking at the house. Oh, look at the door. Oh, look at all the things inside. But you never go in to shop. You never get to go and see what's up there in the heavenly realm on the 8th day. So I think that this Sukkot, what I really want to embrace is, hey, I didn't deserve it, but I get forgiven. And I can, like you just said, Traver, is I can go a little bit further and step into the promise and live that promise and let it shine through in me. Amen. Thank you.
Only with your permission?
Go ahead.
Kevin brought out something, if you don't mind. When you know how he brandishes the sword? That's in, let's see here, verse 41. Can you bring that up again? And I would benefit so much. Because this, I could track real easy, but I didn't see it in this. Could you bring up again That was when, you know how you brought up that there is a sword, if I sharpen my flashing sword, and the connection there between Genesis 3?
Yeah, it's just in Genesis chapter 3, verse 24.
Yeah, will you tell him? Do you remember?
Yeah. Just noticing that chapter 3, verse 24 ends with, so he drove the man out, and at the east of the Garden of Eden, he stationed the cherubim and the flaming sword, which turned every direction to guard the way to the tree of life. There's a connection there, and I think Victoria brought up in Revelation, we, get to enjoy the tree of life because we are able to step into the Garden of Eden again, in the end, through Yeshua.
Okay, I know I'm pushing it. Jacob, you gotta, could you, the way that you said it this morning, you equated the sword here, the sword at the rock? Maybe it was could you just rehash that a little bit? I just need to rehear it so I can get good at it.
Horeb is Sinai in Hebrew. So it's derived from the Hebrew cognate harev, which is effectively like to cut. So the rock, if you actually go to where the biblical Mount Sinai probably is, which is in Saudi Arabia, Jabal al-Lawz, there's a rock there that's been cloven in like two. So Horeb, when you say Horeb, it's actually reminding us of two things. It's reminding us of the Israelites when the Levites turn against their own brothers and cut down those who were disobedient to the covenant with the sword. It reminds you of the cleft rock as well. So it's this idea that there's a sword present with the Lord. And the importance of that is that at Exodus, after they violate the covenant, there's this really odd portion that the voice says, I'm going to send my angel ahead of you, or my messenger, Malachi, ahead of you. And you're going to do whatever he says to do because I'm going to put my name in him. Or my name is in him. I'm not going to put it there. It is there. And if you sin against him, he has the authority to forgive or not forgive you, which should throw off alarm bells for New Testament, because what do the Pharisees keep saying? Who has the power to forgive sin except God alone? But it's actually there the whole time back in Exodus. And so the conversation got brought up because Brother Kevin was talking about this idea of this sword, this flashing sword guarding the way to Eden, and then you have this flashing sword that's being brandished. And then when the Israelites get ready to enter into the land, they cross over the Yarden, and what's the first thing that Yeshua sees? There's an angel or a supernatural being standing there, sword drawn, and Yeshua asks, whose side are you on? And the being responds, you shouldn't be asking that question. I'm on the Lord's side. The question is if you're on the Lord's side, because I'm always on the Lord's side, because I'm the commander of the host of the Lord. And he has the sword drawn. And so there's this idea that it's actually the Son this entire time that holds the power to let you in or cast you out. From the very beginning, from Bereshit, from Genesis. He has the power to make alive or make dead. He has the power to grant you access to eternal life, or he has the power to grant you eternal death. And it's all going to be based upon your willingness to obey him.
Okay. The what you were just saying there, Yaakov, just came to me where it says, hey, where have we heard this before? It's the Amidah. It's prayed 3 times a day in the synagogue. From 32, 37 to 41 is the Amidah. It is the Lord's Prayer right there, right in front of us. And what does Jesus say? Hey, if you paid attention, it's been screaming at you that I'm coming, and you don't even recognize me. And I read this, and I heard it this morning, and I didn't even realize that here is the Amidah right here in front of us. He has the power to kill. He has the power to resurrect. He has the power to forgive. He has the power to grace us. So, and this is where it is. That's so powerful. Thank you. Oh. Well, the long Amidah is what is prayed in synagogue every single day, in the morning, in the afternoon, and at night. And it is the prayer where we go through a dedication to say, Lord, pretty much right here, you are all that is. You are the God of the presence. You gave us this life. You heal us. You are merciful to us. And it's showing a position between the Lord God Almighty and in that, the ones who are Messianic who do understand that that's through Yeshua. And we don't get to the Father except through the Son. But that ultimately, that resurrective power, when we falter and we are killed, he is going to bring us back and have us to live. And that is the Amidah. And that is essentially where this is. So here's essentially Moshe giving his last Amidah to the people and saying, don't forget this, but you will forget it. And here we are today, and I'm realizing that I didn't realize it. It's it, because right here in 37, 38, I am he. There is no Elohim with me. And it goes again, I kill and I make alive. I wound and I heal. Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand. And that is the summation of the Lord's Prayer. It is the summation of the Amidah. So thank you. What verses were those from? That's 37. That is in Deuteronomy 37 and going to Deuteronomy 43.
So 3 to 43?
You know, hey, when we were in our little group this morning, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's, I'm learning every day. And to look at when Kevin brought up this sword being brandished and seeing the same thing in the Garden of Eden, what did they do? They said no to Yahweh's commandments, essentially. It's Yahweh's job alone to determine the good and the evil. And they took that power into their hands. And once they did that, Yahweh's like, no, you can't do that. And he said, that's one of the dividing things. You are being rebellious. And so they are put outside the Garden of Eden. And then the Garden of Eden, a.k.a. a promised land. But it was just a land. It wasn't promised yet. It was just a land, but it was a good land. It was a Garden of Eden. But the idea at the end of Revelation is we go back there. And then here in this object lesson of a story that's real with Israel. They're going into the promised land, but in some sense they're coming up against this God. They are coming against God, and he's brandishing. He's saying, look, that sword's still there, and there's only one way in. You're going to have to stop with your rebellious heart and have your sins cleansed by my Son. Then they go in. And then when you're going through it with Joshua, I'm like, hot dog, that's just non-kosher hot dogs. But my goodness, that was just so good and rich. It's so neat to hear about, here we are, a people that have found Yeshua as our Messiah, the cleanser of our sin, but we've also, through obedience, and when I mean obedience, he's given us a three-dimensional discipleship thing that we walk in, that we know even better who he is and what he's done for us. And it makes our relationship so much richer. I just want to thank my friends, because I went to school this morning, and it was so good.
Anyone else?
Trevor, when you were talking about the link between Yeshua and Yahweh and wanting to make a deeper connection there, I remembered at the scene of the burning bush, Moshe asking, "Who shall I say has sent me?" And the answer is, Eheya, Asher Eheya, which means I am, or the living one, the one who is, who was and is to come, you could say also. But in the book of John, Yeshua says, before Avraham, Eheya, Asher, Aheya. That's what he answers the Pharisees. He calls himself, when he says, I am, he's repeating that same phrase from the burning bush.
Anyone else? Okay.
Sorry, this is awesome to me. So it's so funny you bring that up, Veronica, because this literally was going through my head all Bible study this morning. I didn't say it because we didn't have time. But Trevor was talking about in Deuteronomy 32 how, I'll do this as quickly as possible for respect to your time, Victor, sorry. But it was basically that you have a situation with Deuteronomy 32. It's like this is going to happen, and like there's nothing you can do to change it. This is going to happen. Like so, asher it's eche asher eche or echeya asher echeya. So you can translate it as I am what I am, or I will be what I will be, or another way you can translate it is I will to be what will be. So it's complete sovereignty over everything. And in the context of the I will statements is immediately after he gives his name in Exodus, he says, I will do this, I will do this, I will do this, I will do this. So it's a complete sovereignty. And that's exactly what he's getting at in Deuteronomy 32. Is like when I act, who's going to stop me? Isaiah 55, my word shall go forth from my lips, and it shall not have failed to accomplish that which I have intended for it. His words don't fall flat. Okay, they don't lack the ability to follow through. And so with Yeshua saying, before Abraham was, in the Greek it's ego and me, but it's exactly what he's using the divine name right there. And that's why they pick up stones. They know exactly what he's saying. Like, they make no mistake. They're stoning him because they think he's committing blasphemy. But he's claiming to be God right there. I mean, that's like one of the ones that you go anywhere else, oh, well, Jesus never claimed to be God. The Pharisees thought he did because they try to kill him, like right there. So that's another proof text where it's like you don't get to use the divine name on yourself and live unless you actually are what you say you are. And so in Yeshua's case, and that's really interesting, he says, before Abraham was, I am, which infers that he was the one who had made the promise to Abraham, which is a whole other thing.
And when he says, is it easier to heal this man or to forgive his sins? Same thing. Anyone else? My turn? Okay. Okay. One.
Quantum physics yesterday just proved something that Veronica and I have been dealing with, because that's what we are, we're quantum physicists. But one of the things that happened is called retrocausality. Mm-hmm. And this is an amazing concept that I've always said that, look, the Torah and the books, the gospel, it is the greatest quantum physics book ever written. And if you take it that way. So what is retrocausality? What does it matter? It means that
I don't know.
It means that what we speak influences the past and the future. I mean, it is literally Ezekiel 37 time travel. And there are so many instances where just what we just talked about, that is exactly what is happening here. I love what you just said. Thank you. And thank you for that revelation on Yeshua.
And that just ties it back to the sword, because the sword is the sword of truth. It's the double-edged sword, right? He says, I give you these words that you may choose life. I put before you life and death. And Yeshua, in the book of Isaiah, chapter 11, it says, with the breath of his lips he will slay the wicked. But in the beginning was the word. And the word is that double-edged sword, so that that brandished flaming sword represents the word of Elohim, which he gives to us so that we can choose life and walk in him.
Okay. Okay. Driver, you want to have the final word? No? Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. That was our discussion on chapter 32. I think it's evident that Yeshua and Yahweh are one. I'd like for us all to leave with the understanding that chapter 32 is a warning to all of us, for all of us, not just back then, but it warns us that there is a cycle that we can either repeat or choose to not repeat. There's a cycle that we can teach our children to repeat or not repeat. Yahweh will discipline us. We can either obey him or be disciplined if we desire to spend eternity with him. And I think that's the caveat that a lot of people don't pay attention to. It's what our desire at the end times, what our desire is determines whether we will be disciplined, whether we will obey him, or whether we will exercise self-discipline. But if we don't exercise self-discipline, he will discipline us. It will hurt. And it will hurt because it will be designed to change behavior. If our behavior doesn't change, our thoughts don't change. If our thoughts don't change, then we'll end up over there. And all those who do change will end up over there.